Ooh, it's a good choice. Good choice, Chuck P. at Master Control this morning. It's AM Baton Rouge. It got started last night at the Metro Council. I don't know what I was expecting when I walked in there. I think Councilman Matt Watson is, and right now Councilwoman Tara Wicker in studio.
And Councilwoman Barbara Freiberg is joining us by telephone. She couldn't make it to the studio.
Is that her on line
That
one?
is her on line one. So
I think the first member of the council I ran into last night when I got to Chambers was Matt, and I said, so is this going to be just a pretty much straight up and down thing? It's like, don't count on it. So it really turned into quite the show. How late was it before we actually
grab that mic?
How late was it before we actually got to the motion and the vote?
I wasn't keeping track of the time, and thank you very much for having us here. I wasn't keeping track of the time. I was just sitting in my seat and listening to folks. And one thing I want to say is a lot of folks that came up to the microphone and seemed to be upset that the council members weren't having an ongoing conversation with folks that come up to a public hearing. And in that case, anytime a council member would have spoken, it would have taken time away from their 3 minutes. And normally people come up to make a statement, and then later on we as council would discuss. So, we weren't trying to ignore anybody.
All right, you know how to conference these phones, right? You double tap one and then get the other. All right, Councilwoman Wicker, while we're getting Councilwoman Freiberg on and Councilman Welch on as well, you had a rough night last night. They were taking personal shots at you.
Yeah, it got personal, and I think the larger picture is that people that know me, people that know what I really stand for, common sense, good government, making sure that we do things for the right reason, understand that a lot of that was a ploy for the splash in the paper or the site on television. So when you take personal shots, that's the media opportunity, and I recognize it. I think it was actually about 8:30 to answer your question when we finally got to it.
Wow. And that was a meeting that was budgeted for 2 hours. Yeah, started at 5. It was budgeted for 2 hours.
Let's bring in Chuck, if you can punch the buttons for us. Let's bring in Councilwoman Barbara Freiberg and Councilman Trey Welch.
Now, in order to hear them, we're going to have to pass those headphones around.
One of you is going to have to put on headphones so you can hear them as well, and we can relay that.
We can share.
You can share. Councilman Welch, Councilwoman Freiberg, thank you for joining us. We're going to kind of go back and forth between the four of you, but what are your impressions of last night? Was this really a bad night for the process in Baton Rouge?
Good morning, Bill. This is Barbara.
Go ahead. You go first, Barbara.
I was answering the time question a while ago. I didn't realize I wasn't on the air.
Oops.
You're on now.
Okay. I think everyone knows how I feel on this. I feel that people have a right to come before us and make statements that they believe to be pertinent or important to a particular item that we're covering, or an agenda item. So to me, even though I think at times it slipped away from the agenda item to some other topics and probably were a little bit out of order, I believe what we did was right. I believe that everyone who wanted to speak had the opportunity to speak, and I believe we handled that process the correct way. And I'm happy that we did.
Councilman Welch, your turn to make kind of an opening statement here as to how you felt it all went.
Well, I thought it could have gone better. I hate that the way it went for Buddy's family. They had to hear a lot of things in a time. Unfortunately, on something like this, the law requires that we do something within 20 days. So if we had not acted by yesterday, then we wouldn't have been able to make an appointment at all and would have been kicked to the governor's office. As opposed to, and I think that we can handle our business in Baton Rouge. So I would have liked to have seen maybe a different forum for the way it went out about the process, but I understand it as well.
Well, here's the thing that I'm having a problem with for the entire concept of the meeting. This was about District 8 solely. We had about an hour and a half of people talking about what their constituents outside of District 8 wanted, about how they wanted to change the political makeup, having nothing to do with District 8, and nobody called them out on trying to subvert the process. And I have a serious problem with that.
Well, I can tell you from my perspective, that was a lot of what I felt in the sense of this was about District 8. And this was about having someone who was elected to District 8 not be able to make their choices. On the examples that were given, both in Ronnie's case and Denise's case, they were able to say that they would like somebody in there. You know, the reason we've done spouses in the past is because it was just taken out of the political realm in such a short period of time. And then to be able to have it only done for a small period of time. And let the electorate from that district vote. But what worried me more was that it was designed, as I heard, it was designed to not reflect what District 8's makeup was. And that was one of the things that bothered me so much initially, not to mention the shock of losing my friend.
Well, this whole thing was ugly for the lawful process of council business, and I think a lot of us feel that there needs to be a price to be paid, if for no other reason, so that this type of subversion of the entire process and the blatant attempt at stealing a council seat is not ever brought before this body again, because it's a stain on everybody.
It was ugly. But I can't go that far with you, only because I understand the process of having people that, you know, that was what it was last night was ugly, but the process worked. You know, we were able to put Denise Amoroso, Buddy's, spouse in there, but it wasn't just putting Buddy's spouse in there. It was putting a lady who's an educator. She is so far behind the American military. She reflects District 8. She knows the policies and what was being done by Buddy and what was being worked on. She's going to be able to continue that legacy, at least in the short time. So it wasn't so much about putting Buddy's wife in there as it was putting someone who was going to be able to carry what District 8 voted for forward. And there was nobody that knew him better than her. And I think we've got a good council person in that seat. I don't think that there needs to be. I think we need to have some time of healing. I heard some pretty ugly things that were said towards Tara, that were said towards all the council members. And I think that we need to stop seeing each other as objects to get around and start seeing each other as families that, people that have families. And then also recognizing that our families and who we are also represents the parish as a whole, as well as the city of Baton Rouge. The examples that were given last night about obstructionism were just not correct. Each one of those examples that were given showed arm in arm Republicans and Democrats together. In some cases, the things that were put out were actually co-authored by Republicans and Democrats. So I think there's an agenda to say that we are not together, but we have been together 99.9% of the time on most things. Not all things. We all have our own differences, but at the same time, it has not come down the way it was portrayed.
Well, let's talk to that portrayal. We have some of your other colleagues. So Trey, if you'll hang on with us for a moment,
yes.
We're gonna come back around the block to this. Now, a little technical issue. Chuck, is that Councilwoman Freiberg back on one? Now, did we also cut off Councilman Wilson by accident? No, we did not. All right. Well, he's either going to come in or he's going to call in.
Okay, we have Councilwoman Freiberg on the line with Councilman Welch right now at the same time. And in studio, we have Councilman Hudson, Councilman Watson, and Councilwoman Wicker.
So, Tara, before we can just all talk together now.
Okay. Let me respond. I think the beauty of the democratic process is that it becomes impossible to steal the seat kind of deal, right? I think that at the end of the day, there's going to be an election that's going to happen in March, and the District 8 residents will be able to select who they believe is the best person for that seat. So to me, this wasn't about the opportunity to take a seat. And I've said it before. Will we benefit from a sixth African American seat? Of course, because it causes us to have those conversations across the lines that we don't ordinarily have. I just personally believe that this was not the opportunity, because you're looking at a 9-month period of time to allow the opportunity for what everybody was trying to accomplish in the time that he was on the council to be fulfilled. We've done it in the past, and so this was not the opportunity to say, oh, well, let's take this opportunity and take this seat for 9 months, when realistically you have District 8 members that's going to make that selection in March. To me, it was just not the right strategy.
The thing that
Let me
Yeah, go ahead.
address this real quick. We had a lot of folks last night that came to the microphone that didn't like the process of 20 days, but that's what we have. If we change the process of having people like with boards and commissions come up with something to somehow find out qualifications for something. If going forward we change something where all the presidents of the HOAs, former and current elected officials for that area, crime prevention district leaders from that area all got together in District 8, there's an excellent chance that we'd still have Councilwoman Denise Amoroso there, and it wouldn't have changed the outcome at all, because she was not someone who stood in the back and just said, I don't want to be part of this. She was the financial chair for Blue Star Moms. She's a school teacher. She was out there. She would field phone calls because Buddy would give out all of his information to talk to people. She was really involved. So even if we had more people get involved and have other applications come in and have a discussion in District 8, we still would probably be looking at Councilwoman Amoroso, and I think she's going to do a wonderful job.
I cannot disagree with anything you've said, and I don't think anyone has any factual basis to disagree. But what I worry about, and Barbara, we've got you back on, is I worry about the motivation. I worry about a sitting 19th JDC judge in a separate branch of government, supposed to be separate but co-equal, trying to influence things at the Metro Council. If you went to his courtroom and said, Your Honor, may I speak? First of all, you'd get no.
Let me, for starters, if I went to his courtroom and said, I got you, Johnson, that's just disrespectful. I would say, Your Honor, or Judge Johnson.
But here's the whole point. Are we missing a bigger picture? Are we missing a strategic plan by certain people that they can try to throw guilt and buzzwords and basically try to hijack the system? Say that into the microphone.
Well, if you add guilt and bullying to that, that's what it looked like. And when Gary Chambers came up and pounded and said, the majority of these people in the room behind me came out against this system, no one is going to get elected to anything if you only had the electorate of the people in the audience. That's not enough people in any jurisdiction to get anyone elected. So and besides that, how many of those people were from District 8 anyway? And those are the people who need to be represented.
But also, let me just say this again, going back to the process, because in the absence of order, there's chaos. Mm-hmm. And so my point is that we have to be able, and Dwight said it over and over, we're out of order. That was normally Buddy's job, but Buddy would sit there and he grabbed the mic out of, point of order. And I think there were so many times in the meeting where things just went out of order, and so that therein allowed the chaos to happen. But the Metro Council meeting is the place for people to come and express their opinions, whether you are an elected official or not. That's the place that it happens, but there has to be order.
I'd like to bring Metro Councilman Dwight Hudson, my councilman, in on the conversation, because
And Barbara, your mic is open, so Barbara, you can jump in anytime.
Jump in
as well.
anytime, and Mr. Welsh
Yeah,
as well.
but I'm here.
Go ahead. You had a yeah but there, Barbara.
Oh no, I was gonna. I know that Scott and Dwight are on, and they haven't spoken. So,
Okay, well, I wanted to address Councilman Hudson for a moment, because if last night were a poker game, you would have been a big loser. I could tell that you were not happy with the way things were going.
Sure. Yeah, I had to go sit in the back for a little while there, just to upset with the process. Yeah.
There was a near filibuster by a Councilwoman Banks. I'm still not sure what the point of it was, because in trying to establish a point with that PowerPoint presentation, she also showed that there was biracial unity on a number of those items.
Well, I'm glad you bring that point up. The order of our business is extremely important. We have a procedure for having public meetings. There's law that outlines how a public meeting should go. And so to have an item heard, it needs to be on the agenda. What she did at the beginning of the meeting was not on the agenda. It took 25, 30 minutes to finish it, and really caused a disruption. So that's why I said that we were out of order so many times. That display was really a mockery of the public meeting process. And I wanted to go on record as speaking out against it, because that cannot be the norm at the Metro Council. This council, if that continues to happen, we will lose all legitimacy as a political body in this parish.
Barbara, you worry about the process a lot. You more than anybody else said you believe strongly in people's right to be heard, and I don't disagree with that. But when do we start to look at motivation from those who are elected to positions as opposed to people who are just coming for public hearing?
I would agree with Dwight that if Shauna were going to do what she did, it should have been done at the 4:30 at 4:30 during the presentation time. I do think that was unfortunate that it ended up being handled the way it was handled. But I'm not sure how relevant that presentation was to the specific vote we were taking last night. And I would tell you, I think what she showed us was that we vote not along lines most of the time, but most of the time we cross party lines. But I do believe that that was a long presentation to have taken up the first part of that meeting and not be on the agenda.
I agree. It was a long, and as Kevin, he was there. Kevin called it kind of a filibuster. I guess it was it was meant to eat up a lot of time. I get that. And it wasn't on the agenda. I get that as well. And I do believe that owing to a great deal of hypersensitivity to the public meeting aspect of every council meeting, I think sometimes there are people that get a little more latitude than others simply because the chair doesn't want to be called names. I mean, come on, let's talk about reality.
No, yes, certainly that happens. But, honestly, I do want to commend Mayor Pro Tem Scott Wilson for the way he handled the meeting. Look, the reality is that if he would have done it differently, we would have had to eject a council member. That's never been done in this. I had Leanne, it was either Leanne or Ashley went back in the history and they said only one other time there's actually been a fist fight way back in the history of the parish, and even they didn't get ejected. So it would be completely out of the ordinary for a council member to get ejected, and that's what we were faced with. While I didn't like the process, Scott did a good job of getting us through it, and if there are folks that wanted to disrupt, I'm glad he ran the meeting in such a fashion that they weren't able to do that.
Anybody that wants to jump in on this, but this was my impression as someone that was in the room. I understand that there are a lot of grievances from our black community about the Baton Rouge that was. But what was at hand was the 9 months to come before a special election in March. And what was at hand was representation of the voters in District 8. And that seemed to be lost on just about everyone who sought to make public comment. Anybody have any thoughts on that?
Trey Welsh made it here. No wonder his line went dead. All right. Aren't you supposed to be watching your daughter? Is this a scandal that we can bring up at the next meeting? Get close to this microphone. We have not yet heard from the pro tem. Scott Wilson now joins us. Go ahead and punch him up, if you will, Chuck. Can you punch up Mr. Wilson? And Scott, we are just kind of going back and forth here. And basically, it is centered around, was the process subverted, or was there an attempted subversion of the process last night? And what are the overall implications? We've got Tara, we've got Dwight, we've got Matt, we've got Trey, we've got Barbara on the line. She can hear you as well.
Actually, we just lost
Oh,
Barbara
okay.
again.
So go ahead if you would.
No, I mean, the first, that was embarrassing for Baton Rouge last night. People watched that, and it was embarrassed of the system. Some people don't understand and respect procedure, the code of ordinances, the plan of government, and the process. And I apologize to Denise. I apologize to her family afterwards that they had to sit there and hear that. You had a seat that was trying to be hijacked. Nothing more than hijacked. And, and I apologize. Could I probably done a better job? Probably so. But until you're in that seat, it's a whole lot different. And I know Chandler Loop will tell you that. And it's gotten to where this is crazy. It gets out of control. It's not civil anymore. And it's sad. It's sad for Baton Rouge and this parish that you can't have it's like mob rules. Just because you have people at a council and you have 75% of them there are foreign items, doesn't mean that's what the rest of the parish is for. And so I'm aggravated. I'm very aggravated this morning.
Well, there were some accusations thrown at you by way of your late father that I didn't think were called for.
I'm sick of that. I hear it, and I'm sick of that. If that's all they got, come at me. If you want to come at me, that's fine. But leave my family out of it. But I understand where we're at today. I get it. I know where it's at. And it's frustrating up there. I understand with Dwight. There's a procedure that we have on that agenda. And how you go by special meetings, it's in the plan of government and what you have to do. We understood what 4 council members were going to do. And so we did the procedure as far as calling a special meeting on Thursday, July the 19th at 5 o'clock. We needed 2 other council members, and those were Watson, and it was Hudson, and myself. Now, if Councilwoman Banks wanted to call her own special meeting, she could have done it on Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. All they needed was 48 hours. But she wanted the process, and it's just sad. It's just sad the way it was handled. And again, I apologize to the residents of District 8, the city of Baton Rouge, the parish, because they shouldn't have to see that. And it's only embarrassing because you got people outside of Baton Rouge that see this, that are looking, that people maybe want to come to this city and do business in this city, and they see that.
Former Councilman Daryl Orso texted me about 10 minutes ago saying that the replays are now posted on social media of the meeting. I'm guaranteeing you the Chamber of Commerce is not going to be using it in their recruitment package.
That should have been a slam dunk last night. It should have been. Just like it was for Lamont Cole, just like it was for Erica Green. You did not have the speakers that come up when they were trying to get as far as fill a vacancy. Nothing like that. And then you turn around and you look at this one. I mean, that's incredible. Incredible. Go back and look, because I looked at the videos of the last time we appointed the vacancies for Lamont Cole and Erica Green.
Mm-hmm.
And you go back and you look at what happened last night, and you don't tell me there's not a problem in this city?
Well, there is. Tara's got something to say, and Tara got targeted worse than anybody last night. Go ahead, Tara.
I mean, I think, when we go back and we talk about unifying, and we all have said and agreed that Baton Rouge has to become one. It has to unify itself. We have to be able to work together across party lines, across racial lines. That's the only way that we're going to get better, is being able to recognize that we're more alike than we are different. And so that other stuff just sells. I guess my larger frustration was just about the overall just division that was there in the meeting and the conversations that were happening. At the end of the day, we have a very unique opportunity to be able to work together as a community. And last night was just so unfortunate because we took opportunities to further divide ourselves and further create these distances between each other that at the end of the day doesn't mean anything when it comes to moving and progressing our city forward. And I agree. When it comes time to look at the video and talk about, will I come to that city? Will I be a part of that city? Those are some real hard conversations economically that people are going to have as it relates to how are we moving forward, how are we being seen across this nation, across this world as a city that's progressive, that's ready to move forward. And that to me was very unfortunate.
I think you have if I can just say one more thing,
Go
I
ahead,
think you
Scott.
have some good people in this parish that African American or white, but you have a very small segment in this parish that don't want unity. They want division. And some of these people don't have credibility. They are stirs, and they want to sit there and they're wannabes. But their job is to divide, and it's a small segment. I think for the most part, this parish has great people.
And Trey said it best. Trey said that there are many times, even in China's presentation, that we voted together more so than we voted apart. There's an idea we want unity, but there's selective unity. And I mentioned that last night because Councilwoman Banks didn't even vote for Lamont, and so we select when we want to be unified and when we don't. And I just believe that you unify for the right reason, for the right thing at the right time.
I want to ask all of you here assembled, because each one of you in this room, and I've got 3 Republicans and a Democrat, and I've got 2 Republicans on the phone. Each one of you, I have witnessed it. I have seen it. When you have crossed party lines and cast a vote, when you thought something was going to help the parish as a whole, even if specifically it helped a certain segment of the community that was not in your district. And I am troubled almost to the point of emotion that there are people that will stand in a public meeting that are elected to office that will scream racism and hatred and bigotry when the facts just don't bear that out. Get Ryan up there, Craig.
Listen, one of the biggest things is, and I do, whenever you watch it online and whenever you hear it being read in the newspaper and sometimes in other places, it looks like, this council is divided, that this council, that we can't get along and things like that. And it does. On the things that are hot button issues, it looks like that. But the fact of the matter is, and it's, whenever we have a group of people that come in and they have an agenda, we as a body recognize that is just 40 or 50 people of something that's got an 800,000 people. That it doesn't necessarily, just because you're able to mobilize and get 40, 50 people up at a meeting, does not necessarily mean that they are the ones who reflect what East Baton Rouge Parish does. And I think that we as elected council members kind of know our districts and know where we are. And then sometimes we also know that there's some things that are out there that are really tough decisions that have to be made that don't hurt our district. In fact, it ends up helping us in the long run because you can't be short-sighted. You got to be long-sighted. And I got to tell you, as far as Tar goes, and I've been maybe not where she is, but I mean, I've made some decisions that I thought were right versus politics. And I think other council people have done the exact same thing. There's plenty of times that we've done people over politics, and I think as a group, that's what we do. But, the leadership to be able to stand in the face of what seems to be a popular thing as opposed to the right thing will always win out with this group of council people, and I'm proud of it.
Barbara, you still with us?
Yes, sir.
You got anything you want to add to that before Matt Watson steps up to the mic here?
Well, just to look at the whole thing that happened last night, and I said it last night, and I believe that it would have prevented a lot of what happened last night, is I believe we have to have a very defined process in place for filling seats. As a school board member, we filled seats twice while I was there. I think I was president maybe both times. It was a very orderly process. It gave, when Randy Lamanna passed away and when Tarvel Smith was elected judge, we had positions to fill. We had a procedure that was clear. I think that's what we need to do as a council. That way you don't have the kind of conversation that we had last night. You have a transparent, open process where people submit their names, they submit a resume, a letter of intent. They're given the opportunity to come and speak for 5 minutes before the group or 10 minutes, whatever you want to give them. And then the council makes the decision. Now, people may disagree with me on that, but I do believe it would bring order to what was very disorderly process last night.
It is a process, and I agree. But there are some
And
people
I
that,
think
you saw it last night, they don't care about the process.
You know what? We had a lot of dissension and contentious meetings as a school board member, but it never got to what we saw last night. And I think that's because the processes were in place to keep that kind of thing from happening. Last night, I respect what you did, Scott, and I appreciate what you did. I think that the counter to that would have been more chaos than there was. So I just think if you have processes in place, we have that for commissions and boards.
Well, that's absolutely true, Barbara. And I think as I went through last night, unfortunately, I'll say this. The narrative that was played out, to jump back to what we were talking about earlier, the narrative earlier was to have people there with anger on their mind to try to make the point that there is this separation between Democrats and Republicans, or African American and white people. And what was intentionally left out in Chauna's presentation and a lot of the folks that came up to the microphone were the fact that so many things get unanimously approved in council. When I went up to the Martin Luther King Center with Lamont Cole and did something to raise the penalties on blight, that was directly from conversations with folks in Lamont's district, with those folks in his district. I worked with Erica Green on something to stop human trafficking. Those are things that I specifically worked with folks that shared those interests and wanted to get those things done, and they were conveniently left out of the presentation. And to go to Barbara's point, is I'm scratching out about what we could possibly do to begin some kind of process. And I'll tell you, I was looking. And before I could get that out, she said something else again about somebody being Judas or anything like this. And I'm thinking, how can we have a productive conversation?
Okay, I just got to say something. And y'all know me well enough. I don't always say the most political thing. And so it'll probably blow up. But, hey, that's just who I am. And it's going to be okay. Because I'm really not afraid of anybody but God. But here's my issue. This situation literally came out of nowhere, right? So none of us had any anticipation or preparation for this happening, because the way that we've always allowed the surviving spouse to take that had happened for years and years before any of us were on council. It happened in the legislature. That was just kind of the unspoken process, right? So this came seemingly out of nowhere. But I'm gonna be honest with you, and I know this because the Tuesday morning when the press release came out was the first time that I went to, and I usually never even mention this guy's name because I don't want to give him any more credibility because he makes money off of division. But because of the fact that he's out there on purpose making money off of our community, creating division that's really not there, and being ugly and making money off it, is aggravating me. Wait, let me calm down. Calmer.
Take a beat, Tara.
The truth of the matter is the day of Buddy's funeral, there was an article that was written by Gary Chambers. And, of course, again, he loves to call his name because he wants the clicks. But, you know, he wrote an article that started this process. Nobody was having this conversation about, we need to take this as an opportunity to do this, until Gary wrote the article. And I didn't, because I on purpose don't read this stuff because it's so divisive and it's so untruthful that I don't even waste my time reading it. But then when the press release came out that Tuesday, someone sent it to me. They said, "Look, I know you don't read this stuff, but you need to read this and see what's going on." That's how it came out, and that was exactly what was in the meeting, was verbatim what he had put in his article. And I don't work for Gary. Gary didn't run for office.
He wasn't elected to anything.
And I'm tired of him trying to be the council person for our district.
And two quick things that I just want to add real quick. I know we're short on time, but what I want to add is that two leaders really emerged last night, and they're both extremely strong, intelligent women. One is sitting right next to me. Tara did an exceptional job. If you want to give yourself a boost and see something positive that came out of the meeting last night, go back and watch the illustration that she and Councilman Welch did with pricking their fingers and demonstrating that we all bleed the same color. Mm-hmm. We're all people. We have one race. It's the human race.
Poised under fire, too. I'd like to say that.
Absolutely.
Poised under fire.
She did an exceptional job, and that was really leadership emerging.
And let me interrupt you. This from Doug Wayne, who's watching us with many, many people on Facebook. Tara, apparently Mr. Chambers has posted a very nasty article about you. Mr. Wayne says he has crossed way over the line this time.
That's what he does.
I want to say something.
Come on in here, Trey. Get in here.
This is the thing, and especially that of all of what was said last night, and how the thought was is that 4 council people were attacked, and then he and several of his friends do the exact same thing to Tara, and that boggles my mind, because the fact is that how do you legitimately say we have the right to say what we want to say, but then turn around and do the exact same attack against someone else for standing up for what they believe is the right thing? And I don't understand that, and no one came to her defense. But I'm going to tell you what, leadership, that's that lady. And I've told her that, and I believe it, and I'm proud to serve her.
And here's what I need to ask you all, Dwight, and you can answer this and finish your thought. It seems to me that I'm sitting here as someone who cares greatly about what you all do, individually and collectively. I pay my taxes. I live in the parish. I don't take my money to Ascension Parish when I leave here. Fool me once, shame on you. Fool me twice, shame on me. Is this going to leave a mark? Are you all going to have to be very, very circumspect with this little cabal from this point forward to make sure we don't have more of this ridiculousness?
Look, I'm not going to try to speak for the group, but I'll speak for myself. I'm going to stick to the process. I'm going to stick to representing my constituents in District 9. I'm going to stick to trying to watch out for what's best for the parish. When there's an opportunity to work with the other side of the aisle, I'm going to jump at that. Ultimately, it is going to be up to the voters to decide what's right, what's wrong, what is effective representation of those districts. So if you're upset with how it went down, look, this is your job as constituents, your job as voters to hold us accountable. It's all about the voters, and they've got to make sure. But if you have just a second, I'll try and finish my thought.
Absolutely, yeah. We've got all the way to the top of the hour. So
all right, I just wanted to say the other leader that really emerged last night was Denise Amoroso.
Who's watching us live on Facebook right now.
She sat through that entire meeting and displayed an incredible amount of class, poised, graceful, and when she came up after that extremely contentious debate and vote and took that seat, that was just a great example of leadership. I believe that she will do an exceptional job for the folks in District 8. She has that same calm, cool, collected, even keel that Buddy had, and I fully expect her to do an exceptional job for the people in District 8, just like Buddy always did.
Barbara, it sounded like you had something you want to jump in with there.
No, I agree with what Dwight said. So.
Oh, and by the way, for all of you here, and for those of you on Facebook Live, I deliberately did not invite Councilwoman Amoroso to this little gathering, since a lot of it was going to be the subject of her, and because I think she deserves her own half hour without all of you interfering.
I agree.
So we're going to invite her on to give her own half hour as a new council
And even
member.
though we miss Buddy, and we do miss him terribly because he was just such a great friend to all of us, just you saying Councilwoman Amoroso just kind of made me feel really proud there. Hi, Denise.
I have to tell you, the way I make my living is observing and verifying and then talking about it later. And the biggest shame of all of this was Buddy Amoroso was the first man who would come in and say, now look, you guys aren't going to lead me down a race baiting path because I don't want to go there. Buddy Amoroso was the first guy that said, I want to try to work this out. Buddy Amoroso would never on his worst day have done one 15-second bit of what they did all night last night. And the amount of disrespect that showed, not just for our process, our plan of government, but for the voters who put him there by 66%, makes me so upset and angry that I am having a hard time not getting an FCC fine as we talk this morning.
Well, I'm going to tell you, Buddy is. Oh, sorry. Buddy is an example, but so was Ronnie. Ronnie,
I loved
would have
Ronnie.
been the exact same way, and that's the thing is their legacy, Buddy's legacy, Ronnie's legacy, on that council and where it left us. A lot of times, she would talk to us, and so would Buddy, and I'm going to tell you what, going forward, you ask whether it would leave a mark. I hope that the mark that it leaves was a starting line, and we can go forward from here. And maybe we needed to clear the air. Maybe that was one of the things that we can start as a body to start that healing process. I told them last night that I made a post that I wasn't proud of, because it wasn't the way I felt. It was the way that I let someone else's actions influence mine, and I shouldn't have done that. But going forward, I think that we're going to be fine. But it's going to take a road that's two ways, and we'll see what happens on the other side as well.
Well, and it needs a road where everybody gets a lane and they travel in the same direction, and you can't do that by being blatantly disrespectful of the process as it applies to everybody else. There were people last night that looked like they'd never taken a civics class, and deliberately so. And I think that's very dangerous. It's very dangerous for our parish, and it's dangerous for that council. It really is.
We've got to be able to bring things, to order. The reason why we have laws, the reason why we have, structure in place is so that we can have a format that allows us to be productive and be right. Because otherwise, again, you'll just have chaos. And the other thing is that I've never seen the opportunity to build on the foundation of division. My husband's a contractor, so anytime that they build a foundation, if there's a crack in the foundation, if there's anything that is awry in that foundation, that whole house is going to fall. And so somebody said it last night and this morning, division never helps us to build a solid house and a solid structure. And Baton Rouge is our house. And like that or not, y'all, we are a blended family. We're all together in this. We all came from the same source. And until we get over the fact that you're white, I'm black, all of that kind of stuff, we will never be able to move forward as a community. You got to look at the heart.
That is where we are going to leave it. There are so many complimentary comments for all of you on Facebook that we would have taken the whole time sharing them by. I invite you to look at it later. People were very, very complimentary of you all guarding the process. At the next council meeting, I think maybe Kevin, Chuck, and I are going to deliver some pizzas, and we'll hide some beer and try to get everybody mellowed out before.
I need some gluten-free pizza and no beer for me. But,
but thank you all. Barbara on the phone, thank you. Scott on the phone, thank you all. Godspeed, and we're proud of you. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
And we'll have news coming at you next on Talk 107.3 FM.